Hello everybody, my name is Fudge, and I've got a video for y'all about how to make your Dodge muscle car handle better. Now, in this video, I only go over some of the topics, if not just a portion of them, kind of grazing over the in-depth dynamics of racing and handling. There's a lot of information that isn't here, but there is still a good getting your foot into the door amount of information here. I would advise, after watching this video, to maybe do a little bit more in-depth research on your own. But this is a good way to just skim over a lot of the fundamental important stuff about how to make such a heavy car like a Charger or a Challenger or a Magnum or a Durango, whatever Dodge vehicle, because they're all heavy. Let's just be honest. How to make it handle better. So let's go and get started. So, step one, weight reduction. So this is kind of like the elephant in the room because these vehicles are ridiculously heavy from the factory. We're talking about 2 tons, 4,000 pound cars, nearly I don't know, like 5,500 pounds. I'm not sure how much a Durango weighs, but I know it's a lot. And I'm just going to put that sucker as like the biggest Dodge. And considering there is a Hellcat engine in one of those vehicles, there's probably someone out there tracking it or just doing a lot of fun stuff on the street, if you know what I mean. So, that being our highest standard of weight, we can also include all the other heavy vehicles from Dodge. So, driver diet is our first thing. If you're serious about it, if you're serious about making times better, autocross, in some sort of group division of racing, and you are trying to get your times down to get into a higher racing bracket, maybe the weight is coming from you. And that's just a respectful but honest, hard fact that maybe you need to cut down on personal weight so you can kind of chase that weight advantage in a different style. And it's known in a lot of racing, just history, that a lighter racer, a lighter driver, is going to make a much better handling car. And it's just the position of the driver. There's a lot of science that goes into it. It's a great recommendation, really. So two, gutting internals and unnecessary weight. So if you're not going to do a driver mod, so to speak, go ahead and do a car mod, and that's completely gutting the car or gutting what you can to get out that weight. Now, it's a big car, and it's got a lot of big internal components. You don't need all of it if you're serious about weight reduction. You can take out a lot. Lightweight panels and on components, exactly what I was talking about in the last point. Surgery. We're talking about cutting out body panels if it means so, cutting out parts of unneeded chassis plates, just as much weight reduction as you can to get upwards of like 500, 400 pounds, excuse me, off the car. Just getting you closer to that higher competitive weight advantage. Because let's say you are racing or just having fun on the street with one of the other American manufacturer muscle cars. They're lighter than you, and if you're racing with a Scat Pack or an RT, you're gonna probably get walked. If I'm being honest, the car is too heavy. It might produce enough traction with the rear weight, but it's sure as hell not going to produce enough top end speed um, to get past that 5.0 Coyote or that SS or that ZL1. Let's just be honest. So you can take a look at the list here about what you need to take off if you're serious about it. So suspension stability, this is where stuff gets really important because now we're talking about the mathematical geometry of how your suspension kind of enhances performance. So number one, coilovers. If you haven't already got a pair, get a pair of adjustable performance coilovers. Depending on what you're doing, you could be dragging the car, you could be street dragging, you could be, if you're crazy enough, street circuiting, or autocross, whatever you're doing. Make sure you get a pair of coilovers that fits your driving style or your driving scenario. Don't get extremely stiff coilovers if you're dragging. Get something that's moderate stiffness that you can adjust to have a somewhat soft dampening system so you could get that tire traction but not spin tires out of the brute amount of spring rate that you've got on your rear springs. And if you're autocrossing, then yes, do get a tight spring so you have a great stiff car throughout your turns. You want that stiffness, you want that traction, you want that lack of body roll with the vehicle. So control arms and for camber and caster, this is just more details about your suspension geometry. You want it to be adjustable, so you don't have issues with your alignment when it comes to that. It's not just street alignment. This could be for your specific use. You are going to want to make sure that your alignment is for what you're doing. So number 3, strong tie rods and end links. This is just safety features. Of course, you need them on your car, but if you increase the strength of them, you'll probably increase a little bit in your suspension performance, but it's for sure a fail-safe. If something else goes wrong, at least your tie rods will be there. Performance sway bar. This is really important because the car, although it's not exactly something that you look for because it's a Charger and a Challenger or a Durango, there is not too much body roll. But if you really push it, there is a lot of body roll, and that needs to be taken care of with a stiff, extremely well designed, maybe even manufactured catted performance sway bar, an anti-roll bar, anti-sway bar, and your struts as well. So we're going to combine 4 and 5. Your strut tower braces and anti-sway bars are all meant to kind of alleviate the bending and or rolling of your vehicle under turning. And it's just those G-forces, moments of inertia that's just acting on your vehicle, and these components are going to decrease, the amount of uh, performance performance lack that's going to have on your vehicle. These are just important components for tightening up your vehicle. Watching out for too much negative camber. Don't run too much negative camber if you're tracking or dragging, especially not if you're dragging. You don't want too much negative camber on the drag. Just be mindful of your contact patch, and we'll get to that in the next slide. Be mindful of maintenance and whatnot, your bushings, control arms, clean suspension, whatever. Just make sure that your stuff is clean and it's working properly. Spring dampening for your intended use. We talked about that. If you're going drag or track setup, just be careful. And configure all of them with your weight distribution traction. Weight distribution goes hand in hand with your traction and your suspension geometry. Make sure that after every modification or whatever you're doing, wherever your weight is going to affect how your traction is going to be handling, and your suspension is going to be affected by the weight distribution of the vehicle. Step 2.5, traction and weight distribution. So number 1, purchase tires with the greatest traction force or potential cornering force. Those two terms might be a little bit out there for someone who doesn't study or know about just racing in general. It just means get something that's got a lot of stick to it. Okay, it's a sticky tire and can take a lot of G's in the corners or take a lot of G's from the start. You just want something that sticks well. Distribute weight so that you aid the car in grip but don't take away from its handling. This is important because whenever you are putting modifications on, have it be a engine swap or you're upgrading your engine components, maybe putting a supercharger. These might be things that you can't exactly alleviate because putting a supercharger is really a local area, but maybe we're putting in a NOS bottle. If you're putting in a NOS bottle for running NOS, put it somewhere where you think you might have a advantageous distribution of weight. So try and get on the rear tires, close to the rear tires, so you can get that and make it towards the center of the vehicle. So not only are you putting more weight on the rear tire, but you're also making the roll center of your vehicle not so outboard and more centered to the car. Observe car's traction capabilities later modification, so make sure that you're looking at that. Observe the moments of inertia during weight balancing. So this is important because whenever you're at the track or whenever you're at the drag, make sure that someone has got a camera or someone has got, if you have sensors or something, just look at your data to see how the car is moving and the movement of your vehicle around turns to see if you need to distribute weight somewhere else, because that is going to affect severely how your car is taking those turns and taking that launch. Try and get tires at minimum 10 inches wide. This is really just like a simple thing for street and then all the way up to competitive racing. 10 inches wide is at least what you want. At maximum, it doesn't matter. Get as wide fat tires as you'd like, but 10 inches is this is honestly for the RT guys and maybe SXT. I doubt it, but whatever. Just get 10 inches wide at least. Focus weight on the rear tires. Yeah, this is important because the car, depending on your model, scat pack and up, you're going to have a ridiculous amount of torque and a ridiculous amount of just power to the wheels, power to the crank, stupid amounts of torque and horsepower. And this is on whatever vehicle that's got the performance engines in it. It'll seriously put down too much power to get traction in low gears. And low gears in these vehicles, these Hemis, produce great low end power. and stupid amounts of low end torque. You want that traction. Try and put the weight on the rear tires. Aero and braking. So this is a little bit more for track-oriented guys running a track-oriented setup, but some of this is also important for drag guys. So invest in quality aero parts that will produce necessary downforce, stay together, blah blah blah. The safety is making sure that the thing doesn't break or tear or just completely shear off wherever you bolted it onto the vehicle or welded it. Either way, it should not be coming off, because not only can that injure somebody else on the street or the track, but you can get yourself in some issues with that. You're also having a part come off your car. You're gonna have to put something on later, so just don't have that happen. Find a way to cover the underbody of the car and invest in a well-bracketed diffuser and side skirts. This is really for airflow and some scientific principles that talk about just fluid air motion and pressure differentials. All you want to do is trying to find a way to close off the sides of your vehicle and have it incline from the nose of your vehicle all the way to the rear, to the tail of the car on the underbody. You can look at F1 cars, you can look at GT cars, Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. They've all got some sort of Venturi tunnel. It's essentially just an inverted wing, and that's how you produce downforce, by sucking the car to the ground. And these cars are typically difficult to do that because the underbody isn't very flat. It's actually quite bumpy with all the components, suspension components, exhausts, transmission, all that. It's all pretty extruded out from the bottom of the car. But if you can do it, great. You've got a better advantage than the cars that don't have it. And don't make it too heavy, for the love of God. Invest in a chassis-mounted front splitter, wing or duckbill, doesn't matter, and canards to reduce front end movement and improve traction. So if you know about downforce, the reason it's on there is so the car doesn't fly off the ground, because that air is hitting that canard or diffuse front splitter or wing, and it's pushing the car down, making sure you have better cornering capabilities, and your tire is also increasing or maximizing its traction capabilities because of all that force. So get something for the front, maybe get two things for the front, those canards and the splitter, whatever you think is enough for your vehicle, and might even go with the wing for your vehicle, because let's just be honest, there's not a lot of downforce in the back at all. There's not, the wings from the factory don't produce a lot of downforce whatsoever. And honestly, that's enough said. Just look at those components and maybe invest in it. Get sufficient lightweight performance brakes. This is just about rotation speed. That weight there might be static, but it's not static whenever you're going around corners. You do have a moving knuckle that's attached to the suspension components, so just keep that in mind to get something performance-wise that also has endurance. It's got a longevity to it that's also lightweight. Drag setups don't need a lot of aero. This is important. For guys running drags, this is kind of the only drag thing here, but it's important. Do not run a lot of aero if you're going drag. In a drag car, what you need is traction capabilities. You need you need traction from the start, and you need traction mid to end range of your run. So maybe invest in a rear drag specific wing. Like I said, drag specific. So it's designed to produce just enough drag for the rear so that your tires can grip. But don't get any front aero. Your car's not going to need it. If it comes off the ground, at least you know that your rear tires are getting enough traction, they're gripping enough that the car is literally jumping off the floor. 6. Improve brake lines. This is just important safety features. I shouldn't have to talk about brake lines. You don't get brake lines, you're going to die. Last step. Go like hell. So with that information, you should have a intro step into some of the racing dynamic features that your car can have if you're serious about your handling times, your drag times, your track times, or just your street performance. Either way, maybe read up on a little bit more of these topics on your own, but this is just a decent reference to kind of get your foot into this this more in-depth world of, I mean, somewhat analytical data, looking at how your car performs with these small intricacies. And I guess that's it. I'm Fudge, and I hope this video helped.